All right, welcome everyone at the next multi-network community sync. Today is October 2nd, 24. And today I want to talk about our feedback from the SIG networking about the service cap to get the GNOME label, and then want to go over the resource claim status that Lionel is driving. Any other topics, please free add a topic to the doc. Not many of us, but still, let me put it in the chat if anyone wants to follow. What's the cap for the service? So me, Lionel, being on the SIG networking meeting last week, and yeah, like I have the feeling, I'm not sure about you, Lionel, but my feeling is that it will not be get merged, unfortunately. There's a pushback mainly around, and the main argument, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Lionel, what I took from this is that this can be done in a different ways, namely gateway API, I assume. I think that's where would be the best alternative. Yeah, don't think
And
they are liking
there
it.
are
Yeah, go ahead.
there are alternatives to it, like having
Yeah, and there are some sort of,
the
are you're referring to,
selector
the JSON
in the
approach, right?
label. Yeah, selector in the label or annotation, or having a dummy selector. It's somewhat a
Yeah.
solution. It's a bit ugly, but it works, and it's how people are doing now.
That was,
Because it's also what you mentioned. It's temporary, since Gateway API might offer a
yeah.
solution someday, maybe. But maybe we could start this activity instead.
Yeah, probably that should be our best bet.
Go in the Gateway API community, bring service or backend replacement, and also I think we wanted to have some L3 and L4 routes. If I guess you want something similar, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So what it boils down to is we need to get off service. Looks like, right? Completely be independent. So the question here in Gateway API would be whether we create a new object that will be the selector. So basically a selector object or something, or do we, and then referencing it in routes, and then it can be, you can reference a service or this object, which is fully controlled by Gateway API. So then this object can work as well, and I think that will be maybe better approach. That object could then work with the L7 routes that we have today, right? So it will be exchangeable, interchangeable with today's service, right?
Yes. But in my case, I need also to have a new type of route to route traffic
No,
that
yeah,
contains
like,
IP addresses and ports.
what do you mean?
Because now the service is doing both at the same time. It is doing the routing with specifying which IP and ports the service will serve,
Mm-hmm.
and what are the backends using the selector.
Right, but in
So
Gateway API, that's already done, right? You have the Gateway API that splits the node, the gateway. That's your front end, and then routes is your backend, no? Or you're saying the route is your connector? Yeah, that's what. Isn't that the same? What do you have in mind?
in my mind, the gateway is just the workload that will handles different routes, and then the routes will route traffic based on some characteristics, L3, L4, L7, and will be routed to a service. But the route for L3 and L4 doesn't exist. You cannot route traffic based on the IP addresses and the port
Yeah,
to a
those are
service.
TCP, right? Those are only TCP.
Yeah,
And you
but
have
it's
so
it's TCP, and you can specify only the port. I want to specify the source address, destination port, source port, protocol also.
so you need an L3, but then that's only IPs. I'm confused a bit.
Like
How's
you have
so
you,
your how why would you define a destination IP? That's labeling. We never do that.
what do you mean
You
we
get
never?
it with the endpoint or endpoint
Yeah,
slice. So
exactly.
yeah,
This is a route, so it should replace your service. So and this is what the routes today do as well with the gateway API, where it's always selector. So it's multiple backends. It's never one-to-one, unless you
No,
have
but
only one backend. But
but
you never define those destination.
no, but the route, the destination IP is the VIP address, is the service IP.
That's the front end. That's where the so gateway object holds that.
Yes, but I don't want my full workload
Uh-huh.
specified by this gateway to route every IPs in the same direction.
Every IP is in the same. So no, but then you create multiple of those, right? You create gateway per IP or per functionality or type of functionality. That's how you
Yes,
do it,
but I
right?
would.
It's not like one gateway. You create a gateway, let's say with IPA, and then you attach a route to it to say, I want that IP to be routed only to this pod, right? And now, by the way, I'm talking about a L3 route, okay? And then,
Yeah,
and again, your destination would be, at least this is how I'm thinking about it. And Lionel, I want you let me tell you mine and
okay,
tell me
okay.
what's this different from what you're thinking and you would wish to have. That would mean this is L3 or route. And then I still have a selector. I still need to have a selector. And here in L3 type, there can be, because keep in mind, I have such use case as well for our side to do. And basically what it means is I want to pick a, let's say, single pod, right? And this is this L3 routing is to not spread the traffic across multiple buckets, but just to one, right? So then I want to have a L3 route that would point to just one bucket, right? And that kind of a logic that will be a logic that can be done by your route controller, or you have that kind of special route. But that's what I would think. So it boils down to, you never specify, because we never did, you never specify a destination IP, because that always is based on selector, because the destination IP, i.e. the pod's IP, it's always if ephemeral, right? So it can change every time. So you don't want to deal with specific single IP. Of course, with multi-network, you probably could have a hard-coded one, but assuming we will go still label-based approach.
The difference here, when I'm saying destination IP, I don't mean the pod IP. I don't mean the endpoints IP.
So what do you have in mind?
Destination IP, in my mind, is the, so you have traffic arriving from somewhere in your gateway, and it has to be routed. So you need to have a route that specify this traffic with this destination IP should be routed to this service, to this set of selector, and then at that time it will be NATed or whatever.
But then that's defined by the gateway, right? Because
Yeah, but
I think what I'm saying is I create a separate gateways for each of those IPs if I have such, and then for those specific gateways I create those routes. So instead of you having, unless what you would wish to have is have one gateway holding
yes,
all the IPs that I handle, and from
yeah,
that gateway, then I want to decide who goes where. I don't think that's how. This is a big fundamental change in gateway API in general. I would think to have something such capability like you calling out, because and there is and I already called out an alternative to such approach, where you just split that big range into chunks. Or you saying that's not possible? I think, are you calling this towards this is this a replacement for BGP? Is that what it is, Lionel? Is that what it would
No,
that be?
no, I see the same model as kube-proxy. Kube-proxy
Uh-huh.
is a gateway. It handles different routes and it routes it to different set of
Almost, right?
selector.
The
Yeah,
kube-proxy looks at ports.
Yeah, but
So
also at
that's-
IPs.
Yeah,
The
but
service
the
IP.
kube-proxy looks really at the, I mean, for incoming
It's
connection, like
L4
all
up to
load
L4, yeah,
balancers,
but
you look at destination, I mean, the service address and the port, and then you generate, then you select which pod that's going to have it, right? And now you generate then a new tuple. I mean, in this case, it nats, right? But it selects based on address and port, and then you nat, so you can use a simple, still open L3 mechanism to get to the port, to the endpoint. But I mean, anything more advanced will typically use a tunnel, right? So you can separate the service based on port.
In reality, in kube-proxy, you could have two services that use the same IP address and different ports.
Yes,
Or you
absolutely.
could
that's
do-
one service. That's one service. You cannot have two services with the same IP, or can you?
No, the service is the address is the service, and then you can have a port as well. So you'll get the new service. But in reality, you could implement it like that, but then you cannot use normal routing, right? You need to use another mechanism to decide where to send it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And especially, I mean, and this might look simple, but as soon as you have a fragmented packet, it becomes very complicated because the fragment doesn't contain the port. So then you need to have something that will build the whole packet to keep track of them, so you send it to the right service. So
Yes, exactly.
So maybe I'm still missing that, Lionel. What's wrong with the approach of having multiple gateways?
I don't know how many VIP addresses the people who are using my services.
Is that the
are
issue
creating.
because of the scale?
I don't know, Moshin, if you have any comment on this. I don't really know the reason behind, but they sometimes they create like 10 service IPs, and they can create like 10 different streams. It depends. I don't
Because,
have
yeah,
the details about it.
So having one gateway pointing to, but then the route you would want to, because in the route you would want to define which gateway IP this route is applicable to. Is that right?
but that's more like a layer 4, layer 7
approach. Yeah, something. But here it's for L4, layer 3. Though, for
L3,
it has to be layer 3, right? And then you need to have unique IPs. Otherwise, you cannot distinguish. Just like I said, otherwise.
No, that's fine. This is L3,
Yeah,
right?
because
so,
otherwise the fragment handling
but
becomes.
when I think about this, Lionel, we do this for L7, right? To be honest, you can send. You have a gateway IP because this is where they are starting from. You have a single one, or I don't know. Yeah, you can have multiple, but I don't think they use multiple. They usually just have one. And then in the route, they have the rules for L7, right? Depending on HTTP, like for HTTP, they have paths, right? So they look at the path, and based on that, they pick different. They pick different backend, different services, right? So looking at that kind of template, looking at this as a template, we can applicable. This could be applicable to L3 as well, where our I think that's then maybe I was wrong in terms of that breaks gateway API. It's kind of similar, right? But I'm not doing. It's not L7 route. It's L3 route. So I have now I can specify a range, a CIDR, or individual IPs in the gateway, and then I want to switch based on the IP, right? It's L3, so I should be able to, right?
In the routes, you mean?
Yeah, in the routes. Yeah. So basically, I say
that's what I'm trying to do, but I also want to include the ports. I could show you.
That's then L4. Okay, so that was
L3, L4, both at the same time.
Oh, you would want to have both. So in L4, so that will be some new type of, and that's still possible, to be honest with you, because
And
I don't know
would
whether
say,
that could be, I'm not sure whether that approach could be part of the gateway API itself, but bear with me. If we were to create the selector service, right? So you can easily select, and you have a mechanism to create a selector. And on top of this, those selectors that will be standardized in Gateway API, which support multi-networking. So you can select, pick the endpoints or the labels back on backend X, right?
as
on
long as the
network X.
gateway handles, I'm gonna say
And
it again,
then,
fragment.
Lionel, that doesn't prevent you from creating your own special L4 route, which then is using Gateway API, looks at the Gateway API, that picks which and listens what IPs are there, and then in that object you define those routes as you wish, right? And then those will be pointing to the standardized selector object. So you have the buckets, and because keep in mind that the Gateway API has to be, those are just APIs. There's no implementation in it, right? Whatever we go there, we would just do the APIs themselves to be kind of compliant and standardized across the board, right? They will never do the implementation, and it's all up to the implementers to kind of do that. What you're calling out might be a bit specialized, and it doesn't block you to create that route on your own. I think the only thing that you would be missing on, and not missing on, you currently are missing is that selector, right? So you would create the route, then that will have that special logic that you say, right? Unless it, of course, there will be other companies interested in that, then maybe this can be part of that.
You're creating a few problems. I mean, I built load balancer for a long time. Typically, this is great, and then someone say, I want to ping the VIP address. I mean, the service address. Now, you have two things that's using the same address. How do you know which one you're checking? And sort of try to build something then that can also ping from both? Like, forget it. So to try to use several gateways and sort of separate out ports, to me, it's like just creating a shitload of future problems when it comes to things like that. And
I think
especially
keep in mind that boils down to implementation, and that's never is a part of Gateway API. That's up to
I'm just
whatever
sort of
you
saying that there's things that it's one thing to have one point where you focus things out, but to try to do this at the lower level, and like I said before, I mean, you need to make sure that your fragments are handled correctly, so you get all the packets that are not layer 4, but I mean doesn't have layer 4 information sent to the right gateway. It is I'm not saying that it should be forbidden, but to implement it and do it is way more work than if Lionel, have a chat with Anders about this. He can tell you about all the pitfalls, because he and I did it like in 2000, 2001 when we did VIP. We went through all this in like back and forth.
But you know Lars, right?
I know Lars very well.
Yeah, he implemented this NFQLB that should handle this fragment, but we never
Lars and I worked together for 10 years. Anders I worked with for 25 years.
Yeah, exactly. But I know, I am aware about this problem.
So
the ping from now, just to answer the ping, it's the service, the gateway itself that answer the ping. So this is how we solve it. But for the fragmentation, we don't handle fragmentation for now.
So I think to give you some, I think here we definitely would want to have a selector and ability to replace service. So basically pure L4 and pure maybe pure L4. Let's stop at that. So basically what machine linked, I assume, will be that just ability with providing your own custom, not custom, the standardized selector object, right? What you're calling out, Lionel, is something on top of that, the next stage, right? Something that we can do later on. And to give you an example, we at Google did something similar, right? We created our own route that does some special thing, and we use Gateway as a backend to kind of control this. but the route is just something that we created of our own, and it's our object, right? And we have our controllers handling them, and then our data path handles that as well. So
Yeah.
this is what I'm getting at, and what we created is a notion of L3 route, right? Eventually, we would like to get that upstream, but we're currently missing the selector, right? So that's a big blocker for us to even think about that part. So having said all this, it's, I think, boils down to that aspect, right? To be able to have that selector, and then I think sky's the limit from your point of view. Of course, you can always go to upstream and try to have a standardized object, but then you have to find others that will be interested in this, and then if you don't, you're just on your own. And basically, it doesn't block you. It's not a big deal, right? Because this is something that it's from what I'm hearing is kind of specialized to your use case. I never heard of such use case, by the way. So that's why I'm first hearing such ability, such capability. But yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Yes.
Yeah, but I mean, if anyone is interested in this kind of things, yeah, we could collaborate on implementation for that. But
No, definitely, yeah, definitely. But this is,
I mean, if as Per mentioned, we could not have an API where there is no realistically possible implementation. Like if we have to deal with all this fragmentation and other tricky problem, yeah, it's too hard to implement, and maybe I should find another solution. But yeah, for now I'm just checking.
Depends if you want to run it on one node or several separate nodes, right? If it's
yeah, I mean, we want to scale in our case, so we want several nodes.
All right, I think that's kind of it for the service. Any other comments? And I think the gateway API approach, I agree with you, Lionel. That's something we definitely want to look at. But this L3 L4 example, I think it's too specialized to tackle with this. I would first try to get the selector object in to have that defined, and then with it maybe a support for cluster IP, because that's another big gap that's there. So how to split or how to create, I remember there was some discussion about internal and external routes or gateways, because yeah, cluster IP is internal, and normal as it is today, that's external. So how you would deal with that, right? If yeah, all those questions has to be answered around this selector object, right? Does it hold the cluster IP or it doesn't? How do you access it? How would the DNS work, right? All those kind of aspect of this whole thing, because it was supposed to replace the service, right? So it has to have all the capabilities with it, right? It doesn't have to have all the blows and whistles in terms of the flags that there are, but the basics, right? Cluster IP and DNS resolution and ability to select dynamically multiple backends. That's what's required and needed.
And there's the front end part also to take care, because as of now, most of the user are using service type load balancer to bring the traffic into this gateway. But I don't believe we want to do it like this in multi-network. I believe we want to have some kind of Metal LB version for specialized for gateway API or something similar.
Oh yeah, that would uninstall gateway API, right? That's fair, and that's something that can be done as an upstream. Yes, yeah, that's a good point as well. That's true. I think what you're saying, having that will be kind of beating, breaking the whole thing, because we need to have the entrance to this whole thing has to be multi-network aware, right? And there is that aspect of this whole thing as well.
I mean, this is already almost the case, because we have this infrastructure field in gateway API where we could put whatever we want, and we could put already like an annotation or a label, and we could add a Multus annotation, for example, or we could have something else that says attach this resource claim to the gateway, so we have a secondary interface on this gateway.
Right. So this is where now we are heading towards, what I was from the beginning saying. we need the network handle, right? Whether it's a network attachment, is a network object, or the DRA claim template, that's what we need right now to now be able to reference that in the gateway and then in routes, if anything. So yeah, that's true. All right. I think the next topic we had on, we wanted to go over the CAP. I'm not sure that anyone had a chance to go read through it. This is the status that Lionel is proposing. Let me share this tab. Where are we? So let's see here. I think we want this, right? Or do you want to drive this, Lionel? Maybe you drive this, you know what's where, and you can show us what you want to kind of. Let me just stop sharing. I will let you drive because you're the author. So why would I? Let me make you co-host. There you go. Yes.
I think you can see my screen now.
Yeah, we are good. Yeah.
Yes. So yeah, the summary and the motivation. Yeah, just to report the devices that have been claimed within this resource claim. So in our case, the devices are network interfaces. So we want to report this devices or network interfaces because we want to get the information from this devices. So the interface name, MAC address, and maybe later IP address addresses, and maybe later more fields if we want. And this allows the third-party implementation. So in our case, it'd be a DRA driver to report this information. So the DRA driver is the one that prepares their devices, injects them into the pod that requests this resource claim, and we want to allow the DRA driver because it's that component that inject, and it's not kubelet or any other Kubernetes component. So it's something that we have to bring. And we want, as part of this CAP, to establish some standardization. We want to specify what are the fields that we want to report. What we don't want to do is to like improve other components, like the endpoint slice controller in Kubernetes or other stuff like that. Because this might be part of Gateway API or other communities. So the proposal is to add a new field in the resource claim status. So that would be called devices, where we have a list of devices. So this will also refer to the allocated devices. So there in this resource claim status, there's also allocation, and where we can see what devices has been allocated for that resource claim. So it refers to it with the driver, device name, and the pool name also. So the allocated devices status means the three fields that I mentioned. We will have some condition that the DRA driver will have to report. So we could say if what's the status of this or the readiness of this device, and this will be up to the DRA driver to specify what are the conditions for this kind of device. So in our case, we will have to specify that. We'll have a list of data which is opaque data or arbitrary data, where we can put whatever we want. I put this because we could report, for example, the CNI results. So we could have the CNI result directly in the status. And the last one is the network data, which contain the interface name, the addresses, a list of addresses, and the hardware address. So in our case, the MAC address. And the network address is a list of network address that contains the CIDR. So as of now, in the pool IPs, for example, contains only the IP address, but now we could get a little bit more information with the mask, for example. And I set a structure also because maybe we could have more things. I have nothing in mind, but if you have, it could be great to bring it to this to the review, because there was some concern about this. Why not having just a string here instead of having a new structure with just CIDR?
That'd be, I think one other thing is routes. I'm not sure whether that's something that wishful thinking, but what if? Will that go to data above?
Now you can put in data, but if we want to have something standardized, we could have it in network data directly.
So network interface is optional. Yeah, that's good, because we don't always have to have it, right? Like if you have like a DPDK stuff, you have only like PCI address, right?
Mm-hmm.
What about that? Is that would be, where would you put that? What if I have a serial VDF? Where would I have the path for PCI? Because that will be something useful, right?
Yeah,
that,
I don't
right?
have. Yeah, I mean, I know about that, but I don't have enough knowledge about this topic, so I cannot say if we need a new, I don't know, PCI devices data or
I
it
would.
will go into
What
network
if you
data.
were to have you looked at the network attachment, because this is well known,
Yeah.
and I think was that your maybe source for this? Have you looked at that?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. I put it in the notes, I think.
Yes, curious on your opinion. Did you look at sort of being able to hang in one or more VRFs and how that would be expressed, or?
I'm not sure how this works, so that's.
Yeah, I think you had it there. Yeah, this guy.
Yeah, here, and I think
So
it's
there's
device
much
info,
more.
right?
I think, is that device info?
Yeah, it should be. Where's device info?
Doesn't go.
Yeah, we have the type, the version, the PCI.
Oh, there it is. Yeah.
Some other things. So in their case, there is this network status that is representing one interface, and inside they have this device info that points to this
Won't they
PCI
have
device.
that for the array? Because I assume they would have to have that somewhere for the GPUs and all the other devices, right? So maybe it's on the other layer, on the other outside of the network, right? Because PCI is not really networking specific; it's more generic. So I wonder whether that's already present somewhere in the status.
No, it's not, because this is the first place where we could put some kind of data like this from the DRA driver. But I know that they want to have DRA that injects environment variable and some kind of things, so the application can do it. And Per, maybe you have a question.
Per,
you have a hand up, Per?
Oh, it was sorry. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
When we start talking about routes, do you see a way to sort of express like a VRF, or is that stuff we need to do later? Because we're going to end up there as soon as you have multi.
You have the data, I would say. VRF, again, I think this is implementation specific, maybe.
No, you need to. Well, you need to express it, right? How you implement it. That's implementation will be fine, but you put it under annotations or.
But the VRF is something that the application should be aware of, right?
Yeah, exactly. You will create the VRF typically if you are an application, because you want to be able to run multiple.
It's not that VRF itself isn't an interface. That's what I think where I would say.
A VRF, of course, it has an interface.
It has to have an attached interface, but in itself, it's not an interface, right? Or is it VRF?
You add routes to it. Remove routes to it.
But
you bind the interfaces to it. So I would say that it has clearly has an interface. I mean, you'll bind the create an interface, you will say which VRF it hangs on.
But
Oh, so no, but then how? Now look at it from the perspective not of inside the pod, but from outside the pod. Keep in mind, what's inside the pod, we don't represent something that, or maybe we do in some ways. Okay, that's fair. But then, if I were to represent that,
So outside the network namespace, the VRF is not visible.
no, definitely, yeah, I understand that part. That's why I was.
Yeah, well, I mean that's the pod, right?
Right. So what I'm thinking here is a VRF, can it be represented and aligned or abstracted as an interface? As the interface that I think, or network device, the way Lionel is positioning it here.
So if this is plumbing, so clearly the VRF, like I said, is something that you do inside the pod's network namespace, or network namespaces has several, right? So it's
No, and that's fine.
not,
So maybe I will show you with some other examples.
but something like the CNI or KNI that creates the interface should hang the interface on the right VRF.
So this is what I'm trying to probably get at. VRF is a routing mechanism, right? Can a single interface belong to multiple? I assume not.
Nope.
Okay, so it's all within.
So
you
the
have to
network
have a
namespace,
separate.
it's really it's L3. Think it as an L3 context, and the network namespace has an L3 context that's there for free. And by default, all interfaces are tied to this L3 context. You can then create more additional L3 contexts and tie sort of other interfaces towards it and set routes in that context and so on.
I think that will be non-standard in terms of.
So I'm asking right now is just, I'm not asking us to push it in. It's more like,
right.
we see a way.
So I think that if you, that
so
will be
that
the
there is a
data,
way
right?
already to do it.
So Per, I think if you had such implementation that adds the VRFs on top of it, you have the data field where your implementation could add stuff there, right?
Yeah,
and that way, yeah, you can.
In the POC, I reported the CNI config. So if the VRF is reported by CNI, you will get it
in here as
there.
well, yeah. So basically, keep in mind that the data, can you go back to the data field, Lionel? I think that gives you like the fully fledged, because it's a opaque data, so you can put anything you wish right over there. And then keep in mind, this is all just APIs. Then there is an implementation that handles this, the drivers. And I'm correct, right, Lionel? There will be drivers that handle and consume this, right? And update this as well. So, and the drivers is not something that this group is working on. This group is only working on specifying the APIs for the drivers. So we are unified, right? And then your driver can additionally specify something, blah, into the data, right? And it can be anything. Lionel, did they push back on the data, or they are okay with having some abstract? Because that's kind of open texted kind of field that I'm surprised did they push back on that field?
No comment on this.
Not really. Okay.
Yeah, I think there'll be a problem because I need to limit the size of this array. I mean, otherwise, I guess it will become too big. But I haven't received any.
But it's a array. Is it one item can be full text, or one item is one line? How does this work? I don't know how that.
Here is an example. Here, this is it's not a list in that POC, but
where is the data? Because you have the data.
This is the data.
Key. But there is no the device info. Where is the key?
That's the key. I just rename it in the.
Oh, okay. In your POC is different than what's in the. Okay.
Yeah, so now it's before it was device info. So this is the data inside. Yeah, here.
And this is one item, right?
Yes. And now we have multiple items like this. So you can report the CNI result here, and you can report I don't know, VRF or PCI.
Yeah,
field or
whatever you wish, right?
And to pass the PCI address and the VRF name or whatever, there was this line before, don't want API to access device attributes. And someone mentioned it yesterday, but I don't remember what was the question. If it was planned or not, but it was a bit unclear, I think. I mean, it's not planned for 1.32, but later it's open, I think.
Yeah, this is exactly one of the reasons. Yeah, you would want to have that to be reported back so that the download API can then pull it in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this looks. I think as a base, because this can be expanded in the future, right? I assume.
Yeah, exactly.
As a base, this is awesome. I think this is great.
And yeah, if you have any comment or Bear, if you want to put some VRF stuff, yeah. So I guess
do we have any other? Do we have pushback on this one, or is it? I heard John was kind of favorable on this on the SIG networking.
Yeah. Tim Hawkins haven't gone through it, so I guess there'll be some comments in the coming week.
Oh, okay. He didn't. Yeah, I'm afraid about the data. He's always like, but maybe for DRA they're so lenient. Maybe I don't know. Like for DRA, everything goes. I got that feeling.
Yeah, I put some example like for having the array, like you report a CNR result and you report some type specified by other communities. And yeah, the user story is like yes, no. I put the user story that you want to read the data, like for some controllers, for example, the endpoint slice controller that reads the IPs, and for troubleshooting because it's easier to have the data directly accessible from kubectl get something. Yeah, the data is driver specific, so depending on your driver, you can have different results. And the JRE driver takes care of updating this data. So it not, I mean, depending of how your JRE driver looks like, the data might not be updated or have the real-time changes of the state of the device. So there was this thing also about right access to or permission to this field in the resource claim, and I had to look into this validation admission policy, which I haven't finished. And if you know about it, it would be great because I need to allow only entities that have access or that are running on the same node as the resource claim, as where the resource claim is allocated. So you limit who can write the data in the resource claim.
And which ones you have in mind, Lionel? You mean
so? For example, you don't want. No, in that case, it's you have two JRE driver, one running on node A and the second one running on node B. You don't want the one running on node B to update a resource claim that is that has been allocated on node A.
Of course.
Only the node A should take.
Do they have such permissions today for the claim? For the
no, because the claim there's no JRE driver doesn't write the claim now.
Oh, it never did. So that's a new. Oh, okay. The status was never like there was no feedback, no feedback loop today. There is doesn't exist any.
Yeah, exactly.
So kubelets. So I mean, you need to look at kubelet. I first time seeing validating admission. Is that like a webhook? Is that webhook? No, that's webhook validation. Yeah, that's different. Validating.
It's a validation webhook in a declarative mode. I would say.
Mm.
Like you don't need to write code. You write this set
Oh,
expression
I see.
that will validate your action.
Yeah, I see. I see. And that's a, and you just would just that's an object. I never heard of this one.
Yes,
And
new, I think.
and you can, is that about the whole object or just the field? I think you need to because it's a sub, probably sub pro, it's a sub, it's a sub
So
status,
again,
right?
I can explain you how it works. You match what resources you want. So here it's an update on resource claim. You match what happens to that object. So in my case, I want to match when the I want to validate only the object where the devices in the status is changing. So I can compare the current object with the old object. And then you validate it. You say the user node should be equal to the object node. And these are variables. And the variables is like user node is included in the request. So this is the Kubelet certificate or Kubernetes certificate, or I don't remember it's called. And inside there is some extra where you can find which node this is running on. And for the object, which is the resource claim, you can check in the status, allocation, node selector, etc., and you find this.
Oh, wow. And it's okay. There's
and
that,
this is not
but
complete
then
because there is some there's some corner cases that is not covered by this. So
match condition when status, but basically I think an update state spec.
No, you don't want. I mean, you don't care if you update the spec. We only care about the status devices update.
No. But I still will be able to update the spec, right? Or no?
I'm not sure. I think this is out of this cap, but I don't think we can do that.
No. You're taking. I don't want the device. If this is about security, this device driver should only be able to update status and the status of an object on my node. There are two cases. So
yeah,
that's what I'm getting.
Yeah, but you cannot say, oh, this user info contains this DRA driver name, because you don't know. It's not part of this API here.
No, that's fine. But how do you block updating the from how do you prevent the driver from updating spec?
Okay, the spec. I don't know. Okay.
Yeah, that's because right now you're only checking that match condition if the statuses are different.
Yeah, but maybe this is already blocked, but this is out of the scope of this cap.
No,
because this is already possible.
Not exactly, Lionel, because your cap is giving write permissions to the claim, and that's a big deal. That's something that someone probably called you out on. And if you have a full permissions to write to the claim, how do you ensure you block only the specific section? I think you can give permission to write to only the status. That's okay. There is that. So we can probably modify only and give permissions to only status. But then you're only looking at only devices. I would say.
Yeah, but
I will say I would compare.
Possible.
Say again.
This is already possible. I can already have a DRA driver implementation with the role and role binding, etc., that gives the permission to update the resource claim.
So why do you need this then?
We need this because because they requested it, and we don't want a DRA driver to update another. But because I don't even know if we can update the spec of
Lionel, just a question. So you defining devices in the claim status, but do they already have some validation on the actual resource claim status somewhere? Or maybe this is an extension, just to understand, because they should have, because they have that. There is an existing claim status.
Yes, but the validation of this claim status is done by something else. We are focusing on the devices in the status. The other
So I
things,
would
I think it's already validated that nobody can update it except the scheduler, I think.
Okay, I understand. So it's more like, but it's not done. Could be done by DRA drivers today.
No, I don't think you can update other things in the status. I don't think you have
Okay,
access.
they
I think it's
create them and then that's it. There is no
Yeah.
update of them. Okay.
Here the difference is that it's a third-party component, so the DRA driver that has to update the resource claim status.
mm,
And the only way to like limit the permission on this is to allow the component that are running on the same node as the resource claim.
yeah, I see. But then that webhook, oh, if it's a resource claim, someone does. So you have to validate because you're creating a webhook, just that. Okay, now I see it better. So when you update, I wonder whether resource you can say resource claim / status. I wonder whether that's the case. But that's one question mark. But the other one, I think, if match condition if status is different from status device. Yeah. Does this work? Have you tried this?
This works. This I'm not sure. I'm creating a new POC with the latest version to try this. I haven't finished. Because
Okay.
also what happens if you get reallocated somewhere else and then like
The status should
like
change, right?
yeah, exactly. So if you change the node this field
Uh-huh.
and you update the devices at the same time, you could like go around things, I think.
Oh, see, that's what you mean.
But this
Okay.
expression is new to me, so
Yeah. Yeah, and I yeah, this is I think just validation admission policy, but yeah, I never did that before neither. So
yeah, it's
all right,
quite new
anything
to me.
else, Lionel, beside this? Is there any other opens that you're missing?
End-to-end test.
The usual. Okay.
Um,
End-to-end test. Do they have some
integration
dummy?
test.
Do they have some
Yeah.
dummy driver that you can use and that can write it?
I'm not sure because Antonio mentioned something like that.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, we need to work on this. We need to create a network DRA driver and use a dummy interface.
Oh, we need to. Okay. Yeah, he has a what is it, kind CNI or something like that for his networking stuff. So he's using that, but here we would have to have some dummy driver. I don't. It doesn't have to be like a fully fledged driver. It just has to be something that will. Okay, oh, this is my claim. It will say that it doesn't have to do nothing. You just update the status, right? That's it in your test. So
Yeah.
it can be something simple that will just do the
Yeah.
status. Okay. Anything else? So tests that webhook.
Yeah, there are some other comments also that I'm not sure. Yeah, he was commenting on this. I don't remember what it was. It was renaming fields, and then that's it, I think. What's that?
Yeah, that's
I
probably
remember
fair
this
as
part.
well. Okay.
Yeah.
I think we're at the time.
It's what I
Thanks,
mentioned.
folks.
It was the same. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks.
All right. Let's meet next week. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Take care. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.